Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I'm continuing on my guilty pleasure films, and today I'll be looking at Halloween 4, The Return of Mike Myers. This came out in 1988, was directed by Dwight H. Little and starred Donald Pleasence, Danielle Harris, Bo Starr and a variety of others. The film takes place 10 years after the original massacre in the first film. And Michael Myers and Dr. Loomis, who are presumed dead, reappear in this film. They tried to reinvent the series ultimately because the third one didn't do real well and had nothing to do with Michael Myers, and that's why people really enjoyed the Halloween series, and that's why he returned in this. When we meet him again in this film, he's ultimately been in a coma for those 10 years in a mental hospital. One night he's being transferred against Dr. Loomis's wishes, and he ultimately escapes in a bloody gory scene where he kills people, these ambulance drivers in this particular ambulance on the side of the road. And this is where it upped the ante with the violence that the two previous films didn't do as much. And it's ultimately about Loomis coming in and going to the sheriff once more in Haddonfield and trying to convince him that Michael Myers is coming there. And he sort of is trying to tell him that we need to prepare for it, like he did in the first film and the second, I guess. And Loomis is sort of scarred, has scars on his face, a walking stick, he's wearing these black gloves. And he's just sort of a damaged figure, ultimately. And it's really about him trying to track Michael Myers down, trying to prepare the town for his appearance. He's got a gun once again, and he really wants to stop Michael Myers for once and for all. He tried to keep him locked up, but he couldn't. He escaped, and it's really a race against time for Loomis to stop him from killing more people than like he did 10 years previous. It has one of the best endings, I think, which I really loved. I'll get into that in a moment. This film isn't great. It really isn't great. It's over the top. It's a little silly in parts. The death sequences are interesting but don't make sense. Like he stabs someone with a shotgun through the stomach into a door. There's just things like that are kind of silly about the film. But there's something really captivating. I think it's fun and entertaining. It's humorous when I don't think it wants to be, but it works. And the real draw here is Donald Pleasence and the Mike Myers character. Just seeing Loomis and Myers going head to head is just what this film is worth. And it's really the nemesis, the ultimate nemesis. It's sort of like Dracula and Van Helsing. They've got them going against each other. The hero is only as good as the villain. And I like that. And that's sort of what they captured here in this sort of film. Like I said, it's a lot more gorier than the previous films. And I guess that's because we're getting into the 80s and the late 80s into the 90s where gore was important in these sort of movies. I like the underlying story. The story of Danielle Harris's character, who is Laurie Strode, her daughter. And she sort of left her, I guess, in a way, or put her into the system to keep her safe away from Michael Myers if he does happen to return. And she's with a foster family. And she starts to have these weird dreams of this figure appearing in her room, which is ultimately Michael Myers. Slowly but surely, she starts to work out the connection she has with Michael Myers, that he is actually, in fact, her uncle. And she's haunted by these sort of dreams. Then she starts to see him. He does return to Haddonfield, and there's a lot of deaths, and as the bodies pile up, Loomis struggles to contain this unstoppable dark force. There is some really great sequences in it that I really loved. There's a couple in particular with Loomis that I thought were fantastic. As he's driving along trying to get to Haddonfield, he ends up at this rest stop, at this service station, and everyone's gone. He goes in and he starts to see these dead bodies, and he knows Michael Myers is there. And he sort of turns, and there he is at the other end of sort of in the kitchen, and they're standing looking at each other. He's got bandages around his face. And it's just this sort of standoff in a way where they look at each other. And Loomis pulls the gun and tries to shoot him, and ultimately Myers gets away. But as he's getting away, he knocks over this electricity post, and Loomis does his fantastic dive over a couple of barrels, and I really love that sequence. I call it the Loomis dive. It's sort of strange and out of place, but it works really well, and I love that sequence. And as Loomis is trying to flag down another riot, he's picked up by this old truck with his old preacher inside. There's a really great scene that comes from that, where this preacher's talking about he's been fighting evil and he's came too damn close, and he knows that Loomis has been fighting evil as well. And it's like these two men who have been fighting quote unquote evil coming together. They share a drink, they have a great moment, and it's sort of a bonding moment between these two, and it's the only character I think that Loomis really bonds with throughout the whole film. A friend of mine made a good point, and I always thought of this. It would be kind of cool if you had a separate film focused on the old preacher and had that same scene, but we see it from the preacher's point of view, and we see where he's come from and the evil he's talking about that he's fought. I thought that could have been really interesting. And as the film goes on, there's a lot of death that happens in really weird ways. Myers gets his mask back, and unfortunately the mask in this looks terrible. It's bleached white, it doesn't fit properly. Whoever they've got playing Myers in this, the stunt man, is sort of, mask is down too low or the suit's up too high, and it doesn't look like he's got a neck. And he just looks like some sort of weird sort of Frankenstein-esque character, and I guess that's what they're going for, but it's just not the Michael Myers that I know and love. The story is really about Danielle Harris's character and how she's stalked by her uncle, and she's trying to come to terms with it and survive what's going on. And he keeps coming after her. You don't know whether he wants to kill her or take her or what, and you're not quite sure what's happening. Her and Loomis sort of come together to battle unstoppable force. And I like that aspect to it. The third act, towards the end of the film, Danielle Harris's character and her foster sister are trying to escape Myers, and he's on top of the car and he's trying to attack them, and then he comes off it, and like the police come, and they sort of ultimately shoot Myers. They shoot him hundreds of times and he sort of falls to the ground. And Danielle Harris' character, Jamie, goes up to him and holds his hand. It's like there's a connection between them. It's like he's passed on his evil in a way to her. And she sort of hangs on to him, and he sort of comes back to life as they do in these films, like they say in Scream. This is a moment where the supposedly dead killer comes back for one last scare. And they shoot him and he falls down this sort of mine shaft, and that's sort of where the film's left. That's sort of a little bit reminiscent of the original Frankenstein, where Boris Karloff's Frankenstein's monster falls down, something very similar. But the ending is what I love most about this film. They get Jamie home, foster mother's running her a bath, everything's good, and then they reenact the whole original Halloween opening sequence where young Myers puts on the mask, he walks through the house, up the stairs, and ultimately murders his sister and comes back down and out to the street. They sort of had this very similar. Jamie's dressed very similar to it. It's a POV shot. They put the mask over her face. She picks up a knife and she sort of stabs her foster mother. And then as we hear screams, she stands at the top of the stairs. Loomis is at the bottom. He looks up at her and he starts going, no, no, no. And he tries to shoot her and they stop him. And it's just like his fear that Michael Myers' niece has ultimately become a killer like him. And he really needs to contain the evil. It's like I said earlier, it's like Myers passed on something to her that they sort of look more at in the fifth film, which is terrible, is worse than this film. But there's just something about this I keep coming back to. I think it's the grand Dr. Loomis character, which I think is brilliant. It's always been a great, fantastic character. And Donald Pleasence plays it really, really well, and sort of a captivating character that I really like. And the Michael Myers character is a brilliant character and sort of takes on this mythic, supernatural-esque elements as the series goes on. But there's just something about the contrast between these two, about the hero and his nemesis, the monster, and how he has to overcome things to stop this particular monster from hurting people or killing people. And I like that a lot. It's got some interesting camera shots and some ideas in it. I like the music. I like that Carpenter came in and he changed up the music a little bit with a bit of a kick drum, so it has a bit more of an 80s sort of sound than the original Halloween theme had. It's just such a captivating and interesting film. It's fun. It's over the top, but I love it. I've always loved it, and it's a film I go back to. It's one of my favourite Halloween. The original Halloween is my favourite, but I really like the fourth one. It's just a great time. It's a great film to watch with a group of friends and just sort of poke fun about and enjoy it, and that's sort of what that film feels like for me. Hence why this is on my Guilty Pleasures list, because I think it's fantastic. Anyway, that's all for me today. I hope you're enjoying these Guilty Pleasure videos. I'm enjoying doing them, and I'm enjoying revisiting films that I haven't seen in a while to do these particular videos. If you did enjoy these videos, please hit subscribe down the bottom, follow me on Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.